So it's still unclear whether Manchester United are going to be able to pull off this Frankie de Jong deal. So in this video we're going to be looking at what Manchester United could do instead. But before I go any further, if you need a place where you can keep up to date with the latest transfer news, find all the match stats you need from games across the globe, and watch highlights and stream live football matches, then you need to download the OneFootball app. I use the OneFootball app because it's completely free, and not only do they have stats and transfer news, but they also have videos to watch and articles to read, which is where I get a lot of my ideas for new videos. And as I said before, you can stream live football matches and watch highlights all on the app. Downloading the OneFootball app will help support the channel as well, so I'll leave it linked in the description below. So Manchester United's pursuit of Frankie de Jong is very similar to picking up a girl at a club. You both look at each other and make eye contact, and she appears to give you the signal. You make a move and she says, "I have a boyfriend and he plays Champions League football." And you reply with the usual, "Yeah, I could have been playing Champions League football if I didn't completely give up midway through last season." The deal looks to be stalling, but she's giving you enough attention where you think you could pull it off, and so you offer to buy her a drink and she accepts. You're at the bar and midway through negotiations, out of nowhere she says thank you for the drinks and says that she's got to go back to her boyfriend, who's on the dance floor flirting with a Brazilian and a Pole. It's now 2 AM and Jim White comes out to announce that the deadline is approaching, and so in desperation you look around and see a plump 2 out of 10 with a contract expiring next summer. Under usual circumstances this would be a no-go, as you usually have standards, but as the deadline approaches you do the deal, a short-term contract of course, but you just haven't told her that. So that's a basic analogy of de Jong leading on Manchester United, as reports do seem to suggest that he would like to stay at Barcelona. However, Barcelona have the financial responsibility of a teenage girl with a trust fund, and so rather than just keeping de Jong, they are trying to get him to reduce his salary, which by itself is pretty audacious. Once you add on to the fact that Barcelona owe de Jong around £17 million in deferred wages, while simultaneously re-signing Ousmane Dembele, paying €70 million for Rafinha, and bringing in Robert Lewandowski for €15 million as well, then you can see why de Jong may be feeling a little bit hard done by in this situation. And so ideally de Jong would be staying at Barcelona, and so this is somewhat of a concern to me, especially if you are paying upwards of €70 million for a player. So let's assume that the de Jong deal does continue to stall, falls through, or even if it does eventually happen, we can still look at an alternative de Jong option for United that they could have possibly signed, or if he doesn't sign, who they should be looking to bring in instead. We haven't heard much of Manchester United linked with ball winners like Ibrahim Sangare or Kadeo Kone, and so I think this does mean that United are only looking to bring in one central midfielder, and I think de Jong is being brought in to play the role of a roaming playmaker in a double pivot in a 4-2-3-1, alongside a more industrious player like Garner, McTominay or Fred, with James Garner being the player I would start in that deeper holding midfield position, dropping deep in the build-up and using his press resistance and quick passing to beat the opposition's press. I would use Garner, but I anticipate that Ten Hag may even try to mould McTominay into that sort of player, or even have de Jong being the player to drop deep and pick up the ball, with McTominay being used as a player to drag opposition pressers away from de Jong. In the middle third, whoever sits alongside de Jong will be expected to progress the play from deep positions with their long and incisive passing, but holding a position behind the ball, allowing de Jong to push further forward into the opposition's half. And so you could refer to this type of player as a water carrier in the centre of midfield, what Carrick was to Scholes and Busquets was to Xavi and Iniesta. McTominay, Garner or Fred would be the water carrier alongside the roaming playmaker, depending on whether Ten Hag wants de Jong dropping into that reduced position in possession, or if he wants him further up the pitch. Garner would be the best option, as he's the most comfortable under aggressive pressure with his back to goal in the defensive third, whereas this is one of McTominay and Fred's biggest weakness, and so de Jong would have to be the player to drop deep in that role and allow one of Fred or McTominay to sit higher up the pitch during the build-up phase. So with it being unclear about the de Jong deal, let's look at some alternative options. Well, one option is Lyon's 24-year-old French midfielder Houssem Aouar, who has just 1 year left on his Lyon contract, and so could be available for as little as £20 to £25 million. Now like de Jong, Aouar is a midfielder in the mould of a roaming playmaker, perfectly designed for the Ten Hag Ajax style of play, being a central midfielder who is phenomenally press resistant like de Jong, able to receive the ball in central congested positions and wriggle past opposition players with fluidity and elegance as though the ball is glued to his boot. He is very Iniesta-like in his style and technique, and definitely one of the most aesthetically pleasing midfielders you'll see in Europe. He, like de Jong, has the ability to drive out of pressure through the centre of the pitch, committing players and directly progressing the ball into the middle and final thirds. He's a very quick passer, able to link the midfield and attacking lines with short, quick pieces of interplay, which definitely suits Ten Hag's methodical, possession-based style. But Aouar isn't just going to aid the ball progression from the defensive and middle thirds, as de Jong would, but he can also provide a greater creative outlet in the final third than the Barcelona man, having a much better eye for a killer through ball, and seems more willing to make late runs into the box, where he can potentially create a chance or pick up a shooting opportunity himself. And we can see this ability in the final third as from his FBref report when compared against every other midfielder in Europe's top 5 leagues over the past 365 days, we can see that he ranks in the high 90s for dribbles, progressive carries, non-penalty XG and non-penalty goals, whilst also ranking in the 92nd percentile for expected assists and a 74th for progressive passes. This shows how good Aouar is when it comes to ball progression and chance creation, and arguably you could say that at the moment he's a more developed player than Frankie de Jong. As well as the Dutchman is a superb ball progressor, he does lack the output in the final third that Aouar has. In more tangible stats, Aouar scored 8 goals in 44 games last season in all competitions, and he scored 8 and 9 goals in all competitions in the previous 2 seasons as well, so Aouar is a midfielder who will provide a goal scoring threat, which is definitely something that United could do with to take the goal scoring burden off of Bruno Fernandes and Cristiano Ronaldo. He's not amazing out of possession, but he's not a liability either, so like Frankie de Jong, he could comfortably play in a midfield double pivot or a midfield 3, alongside a more industrious player like James Garner or Scott McTominay, who would hold that deeper position in possession, allowing Aouar to push further forward. I also think that Ten Hag could use Malacia as an inverted fullback from the left, which would see him retain a narrow, deep and central position out of possession, sitting behind the ball in the defensive midfield area, being the player alongside Garner or McTominay to break up the counter-attacks, and in doing so this lifts some of Aouar's defensive responsibility and so gives him the freedom to float to the edge of the box or over to the left side to link with players like Sancho and Fernandes in the channel. Considering Frankie de Jong would cost upwards of £70 million and would be on at least £300,000 per week, £15 million plus per year, if he wasn't signed by United, they could probably afford to sign 2 central midfielders. Aouar would be an exact alternative to de Jong in my opinion, and with 1 year left on his contract, Lyon already having reportedly accepted a €15 million offer from Real Betis, realistically United are only going to have to pay €20 million or as much as maybe €25 million to snap up Aouar for a fee that's going to be 3 times less than de Jong's, and Aouar would probably command a salary between £5 and £7 million a season, substantially less than de Jong in that area as well. And so with the remaining funds, United could go back to Lyon and look to sign another central midfielder with just 1 year left on his contract, and that is 22-year-old Maxime Caqueret. Caqueret, like Aouar, is an extremely press-resistant central midfielder, having the ability to drop deep in the build-up, receive the ball with his back to goal whilst under pressure, and use his phenomenal close ball control and fluid body movements to wriggle out of pressure, and this is also going to be hugely valuable in a system like Ten Hag's, where the emphasis is on playing out of the back, even under extreme pressure. Caqueret reminds me a lot of someone like Marco Verratti in this sense, and would certainly be an improvement on McTominay or Fred in this role alongside Aouar. Caqueret is also a very good forward pass, whether this is via his long passes to switch the play, or incisive passes to break the lines of the opposition system. But the reason I think United could sign both Caqueret and Aouar is because they do vary enough that they could be compatible in the centre of midfield. Aouar is much more of a de Jong-like roaming playmaker, as I've already spoken about. However, Caqueret is more of a deeper lying playmaker, who could also be used as a regista as well, due to his superior defensive ability when compared to Aouar, and we can see where the two players differ when we look at Caqueret's FBref report. So whereas Aouar is ranking extremely highly for offensive metrics like non-penalty goals, non-penalty XG, and expected assists, Caqueret ranks low for these, showing that he isn't the type of midfielder to be a creative force in the final third. Instead, his on-the-ball abilities come from his ball progression, as he ranks in the 80th percentile for progressive passes, the 68th for progressive carries, and the 92nd for dribbles, showcasing his ability to move the ball up the pitch, whether this is through his passing or ball carrying. But it's defensively where he seems to excel the most when compared to Aouar, being a fantastic pressing midfielder, able to anticipate passes into opposition players and push up assertively, stopping the player being able to turn and using his tackling ability to potentially win the ball back. He reads a game well from a deeper position, able to intercept passes between the lines, something United have lacked since Matic's decline over the past few seasons. When we look at his FBref report, we can see how impressive Caqueret is in this department, ranking in the mid-90s for tackles and pressures and the high 80s for interceptions, showing that despite his diminutive build, he's a very good defensive midfielder. He may not be as good as someone like Ibrahim Sangare, who does bring more of a physical presence to the position, but he's just as good in terms of his technical and mental defending capabilities. And so playing alongside Aouar, Caqueret would be the player to hold a deeper position behind the ball in possession. Alongside Malacia, who could be used as an inverted fullback, United would essentially have Caqueret and Malacia as a double pivot in possession, protecting the backline in the case of a counter-attack. I think I would prefer a Caqueret Aouar double pivot to a De Jong McTominay, Garner or Fred double pivot. As well, so I do think De Jong is a fantastic player and has the potential to be one of the best in the world. I would say that both Aouar and Caqueret do as well, and I would even go as far to say that I think Aouar is a better player currently than De Jong, and that he is currently one of the most underrated players in Europe. With Garner in the equation as well, United would now have 3 central midfielders who perfectly suit what Ten Hag wants from his midfield, and all 3 of them have top level potential, and all for a total fee of around 40 to 50 million euros in total, still substantially less than De Jong's transfer fee by itself. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel, check out some of my other videos in the description, and turn notifications on so you get notified when my videos come out.